Hi everybody, it's Az here from Heel vs Babyface, and why don't I throw us straight into the heart of the action? The boss we're going to look at today is called Iron Quan, and Iron Quan is protected by 3 of his champion Quillen, and the first one is phase 1 called Rosak. Rosak is a fire boss, and what is that? Well, that's Molten Inferno, and this will strike all the raid members for 80,000 fire damage, but it will use up 10 of his molten energy, and we do want the boss to use the molten energy, because if it gets to 100, which is full, then he will do a horrible ability called Molten Overload, where his damage will increase by 50%, and then it will start to dissipate the energy. Now, the boss himself, who's riding the Quillen, has a couple of regular abilities. He throws a spear, which deals 100,000 physical damage to a random player. He'll also impale the tanks and put a bleeding debuff on them, which stacks, so do watch it. But another important ability is the Quillen can ignite his spear, and this is called Ignite Spear Burning Cinders. It will land for 25,000 fire damage, and then you'll see all those flames spread out. If you're stood within the fire, you'll get a stacking 15k fire debuff, so make sure that you're out of it. But don't run away too far from people, because on the first phase we had the range stacked and we also had the melee stacked, with the healers able to touch both because of an ability called Unleashed Flame, where he'll target a cluster of players, and what constitutes a cluster is 3 or more players within 10 yards of each other, and he'll hit them for 700,000 damage spread between the cluster. That's why we grouped everybody up. Now, once you get hit, you will get a Scorch debuff, which will increase the fire damage taken by 20% for 30 seconds. So just be very careful and move together. But it was a bit of a long phase. That's why I cut it desperately short. And we move now to phase 2. And this Quillen is called Quetzel, and he has something to do with Storm, not to be confused, of course, with Quetzalcoatl, is it, from Final Fantasy? Anywho, look at the back. This Quillen can also ignite the spear, and it's dealt something called Spear Strike Storm Cloud, which calls lightning down upon the spear which the boss throws. It will deal 200,000 nature damage on impact, and this effect will cause lightning streaks to fly out on the floor. If you touch them, you'll get a stack. Touch it 3 times, you'll get yourself electrocuted and stunned. Now, we've all been dragged into what's called the windstorm, and this will literally, you can't prevent it at all, pull all the players into what we're going to call, and I'm going to call, the eye of the storm here, where you've got all these rushing wind tornadoes, but the boss starts to fly up in the air and won't be budged. Now, when you're inside this storm, a couple of nasty things happen. Firstly, all the raid takes 60k nature damage every 2 seconds. Most importantly, all your damage, healing and absorb effects are reduced by 80%. Now, you don't stay in there for too long, and I'll get back to the rushing winds when we go there on another phase, but it is a little bit mean and a little bit cool. So healers, just be on your toes for that. What we do when the phase ends, because some of the rushing winds actually stick around, is drag the boss right back to the other side on the staircase where we were attacking them before. Now, the boss, through all these phases, 1, 2, 3, and its final phase, will still continue to do its regular attacks, which is once more throwing a spear, which will deal 100,000 physical damage to a random player, and also tanks. It will deal a bleed effect on you by impaling you. That will do regular melee damage, but it'll put a stacking bleed. So you have to make sure that you rotate with your off tank, otherwise you can find yourselves in critical situations. Now we're back into Windstorm again, and let's take a closer look at the rushing winds. If one touches you, it will stun you for approximately 3 seconds. If you stay in its radius for another 2.2 seconds, then you'll receive 137,654 nature damage. Could Blizzard be a little bit more specific with that number? We've got 20k, 15k, 25k, 100k, and then 137,654. Well done, Blizzard. We could have just rounded it up to 140k. No? Okay. So once you come out of the stun, simply move out of the way of the rushing winds as quickly as possible so you don't stay within the vicinity and you don't take that huge damage. But phase 2 has now been taken care of as we shift our attention to phase 3, which is Damren. And Damren is a very cheeky little Quillen because he deals with reflex and also with shields. And the first thing that we're going to come across is one of its reflect abilities called Frozen Resilience. And what happens is it will pop it on itself and everybody that's attacking him will suddenly, like that, receive 10% of the damage that they did back on the person. And it happens a few times throughout the video. I don't think the damage is going to be sufficient enough to cause too many massive problems, but it is a cheeky little spike in the damage, especially for the healers, and it depends how quickly he casts it. And now the Quillen has decided to cast on itself Dead Zone. Those are those very funky prismatic looking shields on itself. If you're in the Dead Zone, you will just miss the boss. I have found if you stay at range, you tend to constantly hit. Melees, I've noticed that it doesn't put a shield around its backside. It can put it all around its side, front and sides. There are more than one of the shields. But wherever the shields are, just go to a part of its body which is exposed. You should then be able to attack that exposed part which isn't incorporated within the Z zone and keep on DPSing. I'm sorry, Melees, it does mean that you have to move. Now Damren, just like all the other Quillen, also has an ability to do something to the boss's spear, and this is called Freeze Spear. It'll deal 100,000 frost damage on impact, but all moving, attacking, spell casting effects will be slowed by 25% and stack should you remain within the affected area. So again, once it hits, move out. But this is another phase where you can spread out. It's not one where you have to stay together. Only phase 1 is where the range stick together and the melee stick together. The other 3 phases you can do as you please. In actual fact, the more you spread out, the better because of all those spear attacks. Look, we've got the lightning on the floor, we've got the frozen bits on the floor, or the frozen bits on the floor, not the lightning. It looked like lightning for a second, but it's all blue to me. Never mind. The boss is going down very, very quickly in this phase, and we're soon to jump into the very final phase. And what happens then is because all the Quillen are dead, the boss doesn't give up. And Quan decides to deal what he calls his last stand. Now, he'll retain the abilities which he's previously had, which is the spear throw and also the impale, but he'll gain some more, and these abilities can be seriously, seriously nasty indeed. He will constantly throw his spear, as he has been doing throughout the course of the fight, and when he loses his spear, this is when he goes into this ability right now called Fist Smash, because he's got nothing to throw and he has a bit of a Teddy tantrum. It's a little bit like XT002 when he has one of his tantrums and starts pounding the ground. It kind of has a vibe for that. So what happens is he'll start bashing the ground, which will deal 25,000 physical damage to everybody every 0.75 seconds for 7.5 seconds. And the reason why this is nasty is because of that. Rising anger. The longer the fight goes on, the more stacks he will get of it, and each stack gives him an increase of 10% damage. So we are doing this Raid Finder as a group in 480 level gear. We've all been tuned down to 480. It's the lowest you can possibly be in. So come the end of the fight, we're in trouble. But not only that, he starts to play with the rushing winds and will ignite the cyclone, which you can see pulsing there, which will deal 20,000 fire damage to all players every 2 seconds. If he gets sick of that, then he will freeze a cyclone. And if that comes in contact with a player, they will freeze instantly and take 5% of their maximum health damage every 2 seconds as well. I'm not too sure if that's dispellable. Somebody else can tell me if they've already done this fight or a healer's been paying attention. But this becomes a very, very interesting fight. So here we are in the crux of it now. We all seem to be okay. We've only lost a couple of people. Fine, it's not a full raid. but we've only got 2 people dead at the moment. All the healers are alive, all the tanks are alive, and we've got enough DPS seemingly to do it. But rising anger is what's going to cause some massive, massive problems. And the next time he does a fist smash, you'll suddenly see a huge drop in the raid. Now, I've got a lot of healing abilities as a warlock, and I am pumping every single one. So here we go. Fist smash. He keeps on going. It goes 10 times. Hits 10 times. Look at that. Virtually the raid went... Oh my goodness. It was really, really close. And the boss is teetering on the brink to drop. Now, I've procced everything. I've got my extra pet out. I'm using all healing abilities to try and gain as much health. But he spammed fist smash again. So he must have thrown his spear, bashed the ground, and we've lost virtually everyone. Thankfully, the tank, couple of healers, and a couple of DPS, including me, yay, managed to survive. And I got the booties. I got the Raid Finder booties, which are item level 502, but for the purposes of this raid testing, Blizzard are actually putting it down to 480. So there we go, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. I definitely want to see your comments below on what you thought. I really wanted to go further into Raid Finder discussion, which I'll probably do now in a different video. Please do like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Follow me on Twitter, and also like my Facebook. I'm going to start to enchant and gem my booties, and I will be back with some more stuff very soon. You take care, everybody. Bye-bye.